Sorry, I'm a little late. Excuse me. Had some packing to do, and sometimes packing takes a long time. Hey,
Good
Tuesday.
morning.
Grand Rising.
Blessings, blessings. I know there's a lot of different ways to interpret, but I feel very blessed to spend this time with you here today. Thank you for letting us use your platform to have this conversation. And I'm just going to give a little introduction. I'm grateful to share our communities together and introducing myself. I am Tuesday May Thomas, and I host a weekly live stream called 4D Trinity. And it is a vehicle through which we discuss, we inform, we share information that help the community to bridge mind, body, and emotions with spirit. Spirit being the center of the heart space, the space within all of us that creates and generates a fourth dimensional reality, a fourth dimensional consciousness. And as I teach it, that is heaven on earth realization, heaven on earth reality. And this is outside of the time and space of the 3D grid matrix. I also speak on the 3D grid matrix, which is the matrix of our collective consciousness. And at this time, it's obvious that the whole situation our current globe is undergoing is having a purge, is having an unraveling
Yep.
of everything in our collective consciousness as we have gathered it. And so I welcome everyone. I'm so grateful for everyone to be here. I'm grateful to you for sharing your platform for this conversation. We are going to be speaking about Orgone, 5G, and our health. And I'm sure any other little pathways we are guided to speak on. And I will just share first that if this does go over the hour, we're going to go ahead and just stop and come back in and reset, right?
Sure, that works. Yep.
Okay. So I do want to introduce you to folks that might be joining from my side of the tracks, and I want to also let you introduce yourself. But first of all, you're here on Instagram, The Organized Earth, and your website is Let's Organize Earth. And at your website, you've got just so many videos and so much information all about Orgone, Organite energy. You have a blog, you speak on 5G, EMF, and wireless radiation, just all sorts of stuff. And, I remember it was about 2 years ago that a neighbor gave me a piece, gave me an Organite piece, and I had never seen these before. And I got hip to it. And as soon as I learned what it was, instinctively I put it right next to the Wi-Fi router. And shortly thereafter, I found you on Instagram, and I was like, I'll follow this dude and see what's up, and start to educate myself a little more. And then I remember reaching out to you last year and seeing if you wanted to have a conversation, and then it just didn't happen. I think it's just so timely that here we are now, given the current global circumstances, that we get to have this conversation. So welcome. I'm so grateful you're here. And yeah, thank you. And if you would please just introduce yourself and tell us, I'm just so curious how you got started on this journey with Orgone.
It was sent to me by a friend of a friend, a college teammate. Had some friends down in Los Angeles that were gifting cell towers, and I was continually bitching to him how pissed off I am about chemtrails, seeing chemtrails, and no one else can see it. And he's like, well, if you want to do something about it, you can make this stuff called Organite. My friends are doing it, and they're gifting cell towers with it, and it helps with the chemtrails and cell towers. And so I said, I will do anything that I can do to help. And so I built a chembuster in 2014, and then it rained for 3 weeks right after that. And maybe it was just coincidence, but I was like, I think we have something here. And then I started making pieces for my previous corpse aeration job. And people were like, man, I slept so good last night, and I want some more and more and more and more. And so people started wanting more. So I just started to shop, and here we are. And it's a great technology. And if you can make it, great. If you can't make it, I got you covered.
Yeah, I know. I scrolled through your shop, and you just have such a wonderful array of different items, everything from jewelry as well. I know last year I was having difficulty sleeping, and intuitively I just got that I was supposed to purchase some kind of a pendant to wear to sleep. And so I found this on Etsy. And I tell you, every single night, yeah, I wear it. And sometimes I'm guided to wear it throughout the day too. And I have a piece that goes with me in my little satchel whenever I go out. And I just really am very interested to share, for you to share with the community who is just learning about this stuff as I was, and I still am. You know, just the benefits of this. And I know you're also an advocate of clean living and of veganism, and we might get into that a little later. I appreciate last night or yesterday you were on your story just sharing with us how you're planting in your garden, and I think that's a really powerful aspect of us being able to take care of ourselves in the collective. So hopefully we might get to that. So the origins of Orgone, you know, I've been a yoga teacher and a Reiki teacher for about 20 years, and I'm aware of the prana, the chi, the life force energy, even the scalar energy and the orgone. But when my neighbor gave me my first piece, and I was like, oh wow, we can actually, there's a way to create this on a third dimensional structure that will actually emit the similar frequencies. Can you tell us how it works? Because I know there's resin, there's crystals, and then there's like precious metals in there. Can you break it down for us, please?
Yeah. So I get a lot of questions, and I'm sorry that I can't answer them all. Like my DMs, I just can't keep up with the DMs. And there's comments on my YouTube videos, and I can't keep up with them. But I'll try to just kind of summarize. My elevator speech on how it works is the EMF's always going to be there. Okay. The only thing that can block EMF is a Faraday cage. Okay. So if you want to block the radiation and the millimeter waves from 5G from penetrating your house, you're going to have to Faraday cage your whole house or get Y shield paint from Germany. Okay. If you can afford to paint your house, not all of us can. So that's really the only way you're going to block radiation. Okay, now Wilhelm Reich found that dead energy is produced by EMF, and it's also attracted to EMF. So dead energy is on the etheric plane. On the etheric plane, there's life force, and then there's dead energy. And so the dead energy, what Organite does is it works on the etheric plane, and so you're not going to see it affecting EMF readings, like the EMF detectors and stuff, you know. So the EMF's still there, but the dead energy that's produced by that EMF is going to be converted to life force. So try to picture that, you know, EMF's still coming out, but it's converted to life force on the etheric plane. So it makes it so our bodies are not as affected by it. And we can sleep great and dream great and feel great, and plants will grow and water is structured and bees and animal companions gravitate towards it. And so I've tried to make that clear. And so that's why we're doing another plant test, because there's three things that don't lie. Water doesn't lie, plants don't lie, and animals don't lie. And all three of them continue to show the effects of being around Organite, growing fuller, stronger, thicker, faster, wanting to gravitate towards it. The bees, you know, it sounds corny, but I have bee friends, and they always just like check out the Organite. After I have new pieces and I'm sanding them down and stuff outside, they'll come over and say hello. And I love bees. They're so cool. And they love Organite. And the animals too. Like my dog, Mary Jane, who I'm still not over her passing, but she would always just come sit next to my pieces when I put them throughout the house. So I was like, man, it's cool. Animals love this. So yeah, so it's working on the etheric plane. It's not on the electromagnetic plane. So I don't feel there's any real gadgets or instruments that measure it. And maybe someone's going to invent something and they're going to charge like $2,000. And I'm going to stick to nature. I'm going to stick to water, plants, and animals.
So what you're saying is that there's no way to, you're actually not, because I've seen you do some of your videos, and so you're not actually measuring what's coming off of the device. You're measuring just the shift in how much radiation is really being sent out from whatever given thing, whether it is the Wi-Fi device, etc. Is that correct?
Are you talking about the negative ion readings, where it had that
I'm talking about
ion tester?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, because I know there's positive ions which are not so good for us, but then the negative ions are good for us.
Right. So what I've shown with those ion tests is the fluctuation, the fact that it's pulling in the ether and converting it and repelling. So it's this constant push and pull. That's all I'm trying to show in those ion readings. And, you know, for example, if you put the ion tester on a piece of black tourmaline, it's going to be not fluctuating at all. It's just like 0, 1, -1, 0, nothing. my whole point with those tests is that when you put it around Organite, it shows the process that's happening. It's going to positive, jumping up to negative, positive, negative, because it's pulling in the dead energy that will probably be reflected with positive ions. And then it's repelling out negative ions, which is my guess, the ether, the life force. So I'm just showing that they're kind of like a little machine. They're a self-functioning machine, and the ion tests reflect that. And then you look at the water, what it does to water when you freeze it, these amazing stalactites and just beautiful energetic presence, you know? So, so those are my ways. In ion tests, there's a whole thing happening, because now remember, organic matter attracts the ether. Metals, inorganic matter, attract and also repel. So that's what we're seeing a lot of times with those ion readers, is attracting the energy and then quickly repelling it. So it's this constant, that's why they're self-functioning. So they're going to continue to work, and you can kind of cleanse them in the sun, and you can charge them in the moon, and you could also put them in a bowl of salt water and then put that under the sun. And, you know, the magnetism from the moon and the electric part from the sun. So you can charge them and cleanse them, and they'll continue working for you.
And do they require cleansing though? Is there something that you've noticed or that you've experienced or experimented that shows that they could use a little cleanse once in a while?
Yeah, I think so. Like, there's pieces on my Wi-Fi router. We haven't changed. Everyone, first of all, we're going to need to go hardwired Ethernet. We're really going to need to with 5G. And please do not accept any WiGig 6 routers into your home, because that'll be 5G, and they'll be able to, you know, beamform into your home. So we just haven't been able to change our router out because we're waiting to switch our daughter's room around, and then we're going to set up the laptop. Anyways, I've noticed that some of the Organite that's near, I have a whole like temple full of Organite and crystals near our router, and just sometimes I'll take them out in the sun or move. But there's nothing like, you know, really noticeable. I think some people have messaged me that like it helps to do that once in a while. Just give them a quick cleanser charge.
Right, and that seems to be like on that intuitive level of just of keeping the relationship, of keeping the connection with the actual piece, because it feels like it's a living, it's alive. It feels that it's alive. And with what you're saying, because I know for you, you've talked about this a gazillion times, but for a lot of folks, perhaps from my community especially, this is a whole new language. It's a whole new vocabulary. And so just to make sure I'm understanding and that they're understanding, so it can actually take in what is, it seems to be a transformer. It takes in, right, and it then sends back out. It takes in what is not good for us. Let's just keep it simple. And then sends out the fortifying, nourishing, right, life force, orgone energy. And so in that way, it's not, but it's not, I guess I've heard people talk about it where it's not necessarily taking the radiation away. It's just adding more life force that kind of creates a balance or a heightening of life force, rather than it's actually, it's not minusing the radiation. But does that resonate?
You know, just think of it like this. Radiation, dead energy that's produced by EMF is very chaotic. So it's like, you know, it's not coherent. It's not structured. What this does is makes it structured and more coherent. So our cells are not as affected. So we can have the normal cellular communication and that we would normally have if those EMF sources were not around. So that's what I've experienced, and I think a lot of people who are around Organite have experienced as well. 8-sided pyramids. There's a lot of talk that only 8-sided work. You know, that's completely untrue. 4 and 8. There's all different kinds of shapes. They all have their different energy signatures. Every single shape is a different frequency and vibration. So the 4-sided work great. The 8, I have 8-sided too. They work great. But the tower busters too, just like a little puck, they work great. The point is you want to have a lot of metal. You want to have a lot of crystals, and you want to have, you know, obviously the resin is the organic component. So you just want to have it. You want to have a lot of metal because you want to be able to pull it in and also repel it. And so you see like a lot of resin art out there. And I've tried not to get into that because if resin art makes people happy, and then great, you know, it's whatever works for you. But I think you need a lot of metal and you also need a lot of Ormus superconductors to really convert these higher frequencies that we're being bombarded with. So Ormus is orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements, and those, when they're in the pyramid, the device, they're just going to add this other sort of component to it. And it's basically just using stuff from the earth, nature, you know, they provide. And like you said, living being, people say crystals, they vibrate at a certain frequency that's like, man, they're almost like alive, kind of, you know. And they say that the Lemurians are kind of like the wisdom keepers for the planet, you know. So we're like pressing on them and releasing all that wisdom at the same time. So it's not just it's kind of a spiritual component too, in that way.
Absolutely. And that's where, you know, that's the space that I hold a lot. And I'm just so grateful that we get to bridge this. There's no real gap, but the seeming gap between, you know, the physical and the spiritual, and that these are such an amazing tool. And I would love that you're talking about the pyramid shape, because there's another one that I have that is a pyramid. And I'm just curious, for those that are unaware, you know, is there a difference between, is one better than the other? You know, the flat round one versus the pyramid, is one that you would use more for one, you know, technique or offering, or for food, or for a garden,
Yeah.
over the Wi-Fi router, say?
So there's really no rules, right? You could put a pyramid in the yard and it'll work great. You know, you can put tower busters in the yard and it'll work great. There's really no rules. But what I think is good is to have some sort of conical shape, a pyramidal shape, acting as sort of a vortex, a natural vortex, under your bed when you sleep. So like dream machines, pyramids, anything that's have a and put that under your bed. So it's kind of like a torus field is flowing under your bed, up to you while you're sleeping the whole time. So that'll give you some good protection. But you know, I make tactical Russian pyramids for people's gardens and grow operations, and you can plant the pipes, the earth pipes, into the ground. So you're kind of utilizing the electric current from the earth as well. And so we're just utilizing earth as much as possible. I don't think there's any rules really, but for me, I like having a couple pulsed jumbo radionics pyramids under our bed. And I like putting tower busters strategically throughout the yard. So tower busters are those little pucks. I like putting those near cell towers. Those are just more tactical in my opinion. Like, therefore putting on your Wi-Fi router, those are putting in your yard, you know what I mean? Oops. And so there's no rules, whatever works for you and your intuition. But I would put conical shapes under my bed personally.
I'm going to try that, because usually I sleep with this guy just in the bed, just like in the bed with me with the necklace. And that's part of the routine. But now I'm going to put it under the bed and just, you know, see if I have a different experience. But I love what you're saying about the resin and the crystals, the Lumerians. You know, I have a nice chunky rose quartz here that I'm just hanging out with while we're talking. And there is a shift. And I think people are becoming more and more sensitive as the grid matrix is unraveling and truths are just being unveiled. And it's so interesting. I was speaking to a friend yesterday, and, you know, the latest David Icke, right, on London Real. And she had seen that, and she was saying to her friend, hey, I can send you the link. And her friend was like, you know what? I can't even handle it. I don't want to know. It's too much information for me. And this friend was saying about the other lady, how she's like, wow, she was just so afraid even of just fear that she can't even go there, but she can, you know, hang out with her Organite or her crystals, and that will help to, you know, at least fortify and create a balance. So bottom line, that Orgone energy is natural though. So let's just reverse just a little bit before we go forward. So Orgone is naturally occurring in
Right.
nature. Is it
Right.
representative of the negative ions when we're in the forest, we're at the beach,
Right.
that smell,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And negative ions, even though the word negative is there, they're actually the good ones for us.
Right. Correct.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then having,
we're capturing the energy of nature. You know, when you're at a waterfall, you're at the beach, you're in the forest, you just feel good naturally, you know, because you know, there's no man-made electromagnetic energy. It's all just natural. And so we're just kind of capturing that. And so these are like little transistors that you can use to kind of as etheric filters around these harmful devices. That's the best way I could sum it up. We're kind of just bringing nature to our home, and you know, a self-functioning device, and then when we add radionics pulse to that, so radionics, the subtle 15 hertz current, it stimulates that matrix. Because Wilhelm Reich was finding that there's a few things that will stimulate orgone energy. And one of them is a subtle electrical current. And so that's why my most potent devices are the Radionics ones, which I think will be better for 5G. But anyone who's saying that, oh, this is 5G protection, this is going to, completely negate, they're just, it's a pipe dream. The millimeter waves are military technology, okay? And we don't really know exactly the best way, other than a Faraday cage, other than getting like clothing that's going to shield you completely. And water will block the waves. Trees will block the waves. So in my opinion, we're going to have to get back to nature and plant more trees.
Absolutely.
And we can use water misters, which I plan on doing. And use the most potent Organite we can use, and get clothing and everything. So my Radionics devices are saying these are going to be a little bit more powerful, and so they're going to be a little bit better for 5G, the higher frequencies of 5G, because 5G is between 24 and 90 gigahertz. When you're at 60 gigahertz, you're in directed energy weapon range. These are weapons. These are weapons.
Yes.
No one has any idea about it. Like, the reason why I bring up nextdoor.com sometimes is because I get these like notifications from, and I check them out, like what my neighbors are talking about. They're fucking clueless. They have no idea any of this is happening. They're like, oh, stay inside and shelter in place and be a good little slave. And it just, and I've tried to warn them before, like, you guys need to be aware that they approved 5G to go up in our neighborhoods. And then there's people come on, oh, the 5G, we've had 5G for years. It's harmless. You're just a fearmonger. So it's like, there's people, you can hear my kids banging around, but there's people who just don't want to believe this, and they'll kill the messenger. And so, it's just insane times. And now we're dealing with this COVID-19 thing, and I got a bunch of information to just share on that. So, and the Organite, can really help. If there's one thing we can probably do to get through to our neighbors, because that's the one thing I'm struggling with. I'm trying to build a community here. I'm trying to get my neighborhood on board so we can have meetings, so we can trade vegetables and fruits, and so we can be aligned. Because they don't want neighborhoods aligned. They don't want unity. They don't want common unity, which is what community is based on. Nextdoor.com is a controlled platform, just like Facebook is. And they're keeping an eye on what you know. Sure. And so they're trying, and I know that for a fact, because I've researched the owners, the CEO and the owners, who they are, what their history is, and who else they've invested in and stuff like that. So they're just really keeping a tab on us with the sort of theme that, oh, this is community. This is, bringing people together. Just like Mark Lizard Zuckerberg was saying, that Facebook is doing. It's bringing people together. They're just keeping their eye on us and selling our data and advertising to us. It's not about community. So I want to try to build a common unity. And I'm really struggling with the fact that I resent my neighbor. I resent this guy. I resent that guy, because no one could see any of this. Then I look at the nextdoor.com, and people are just so wrong and buying into the fear. And it really kind of, I think we can give Organite to people. I'm going to give vegetables to people as a token of, like, just, hey, here's some stuff that'll protect you from radiation. And here's an extra cucumber. Do you want it? I grew it in my garden, So I'm just going to be like, kill them with kindness, because I don't know what else to do. If I say 5G is coming, you guys better be prepared. They'll call me a fearmonger, and then I'm the crazy nut job conspiracy guy, and then they'll start looking at me. I've been attacked. Like, people look me up, like, oh, this guy used to work for a corporation and he's just trying to sell you something. And, oh, this guy, like what? No. I'm not. I'm just saying, you guys need to be aware this is coming. And yeah.
No, I've seen you. I know I've through following you, I know you've been very active in the town hall sort of aspect and speaking up and inviting your council members to, like, let's go ahead and research this more before we put it up in the neighborhood and whatnot. And it usually falls on deaf ears. But I feel the name, if you would have it, but that I give to folks like you that are informed and that are activated and that are consciously seeking to share this insight and this information. I call you freedom fighters. you know, or you're kind of blazing a pathway for those that don't get it yet. And but you're opening the line, you're opening the way so that when they do start to get it, or when they are curious and they knock on your door and say, can I find out more about that information, like the road will be made. And you know, and I think that's all that's happening. So keep on keeping on, you know, because the work that you're doing is really, really important, to just hold space for this level of consciousness that brings in this new level of awareness. Because, you know, I mean, these little things, I mean, I can imagine if we don't have that level of just being open to thinking about things in new ways, that yeah, you could just be seen as a crackpot for, you know, just getting all wound up about this stuff, especially because there is so much misinformation and so many people are plugged into just one really mainstream level of media. And we know that that is just completely contrived, you know, and manipulated for a certain agenda. And so yes, carry on, and it's very, very important what you're doing. And I know that we all, those that are awake and aware to hear it and to see it, are very, very, you know, appreciative. And it's, as long as you're, and I say this for everyone in all collective communities, that just like, I feel that we all hold a piece of the puzzle of this heaven on earth reality, of this living from the heart, of us bartering, sharing vegetables and information and knowledge and all this stuff. And you know, maybe for you it's doing what you're doing, for me it's doing what I'm doing, but we all, if we move from that, from the truth, you know, that is activating some level of this collective consciousness on a higher level. But it's not up to us when that level of consciousness becomes activated. I feel that there's a shift in the tipping point of our collective, that when it's ready for the highest good, when people are really ready to get stuff, and for the main ley lines that hold the grid matrix together to move in such a way, as we're coming into the age of Aquarius. Like my mother's an astrologer, and she's like, honey, it's no, you know, it's no, it's on purpose almost that we have a certain president that we have at this time, because it's creating the correct conditions for this purge to happen, for what has been hidden to be revealed in such a crazy, you know, outlandish way. Now, I know we are going to get into this 5G, so let me just look over here. Okay, so we've talked about this, and I know, so, you know, it's very, very interesting, because I was going in last night and this morning to make more notes, and this video that I was going to go in and do my notes from has been removed from YouTube. And, you know, they're doing a sweep now on the WhatsApp, on the Facebook, where anything with the hashtag or any information on 5G is being taken away. And that's just so curious, because if there's really nothing wrong with it, you know, then why is this stuff being erased from the media? And of course, it's not spoken about in the mainstream. And there's, you know, those of us that are kind of tapped in, we're going, oh yeah, we're seeing those trucks in the schools line up. And I even was asking a friend, I was like, okay, now all the planes are grounded. Are they getting this 5G on the airplanes? I've heard it's going into the hospitals. So, but before we get too far in, because again, this, I know maybe for some folks that are on my page, this is just a whole new thing to understand, that this is weaponry, that this 60 gigahertz is something that is actually the presence of a level of man-made sort of technology radiation that our physical bodies have not experienced before on this planet, and that it's actually the presence of that radiation that is causing our own cells in our bodies to expel and excrete in such a way to repair themselves, and that is actually the process that's being called the coronavirus. But it's, and there may have been set out a virus or whatever this is, but it's the presence of this radiation that's actually causing the bodies to respond in such illness, in such ways.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about, because the 60 gigahertz, I mean, I've seen some of the videos and your stories, and from doing other research, I mean, the stuff that's going on militarily with this, and apparently that there's different levels. I don't know if you follow Ken Wheeler. He's into magnetism, and he does some 5G stuff on YouTube. But he's just talking about that there's different levels in the spectrum of 5G. Like you were even saying something between something and even 90 gigahertz or something, but where there's one level that stuns you, another level kind of numbs you, another level makes you foggy headed and disoriented. Like there's these different, like they can kind of turn up the volume to different levels. And I've even seen footage of people in China just walking down the street and then just falling, collapsing.
Right.
Because I know in the research I've done and stuff that you've shared as well, that they can actually hone it and like laser it to specific areas or people or places or groups and stuff. You want to talk on that a little bit? We'll jive on this.
Yeah, and I'm no expert on it by any means, but I have been researching it, and for a little bit, like a lot of us have, and they're saying from them that it'll be between 24 and 90, and right now we're at 2.45, and all this stuff is on my 5G page on my shop, but I'll just kind of say it again, that the current Wi-Fi at basically like 2G, 3G, 4G is at 2.45 to 6 gigahertz, usually 2 to 6 gigahertz. Okay, and at 2.45, they found that breaks DNA. The LIA study, LIA study from University of Washington, 1996, conclusively showed that. And the National Toxicology $30 million 2018 study that took 10 years showed that at the same 2.45, basically, that it was creating tumors, cancerous tumors. So the whole thing is just based on logic. If 2G, 3G, 4G is already breaking DNA and causing cancer and tumors, is it a good idea to ramp it up to 24 to 90? And then when you look at what the definition of a directed energy weapon is, 60 gigahertz. Look it up. The definition of a directed energy weapon is 60 gigahertz. So that's right in the frequency range. And at 60 gigahertz, it affects our ability to breathe. It affects our oxygen absorption rate. So
that's right.
So it's a beamforming technology. You could essentially, it's like a laser. So you could essentially, if you have AirPods, if you have devices, and you bring in a WiGig 6 router to your home, and you're walking around, they could beamform to your head and knock you out and kill you. If you were a targeted individual, if they wanted to, and that's what they can do if you bring it. So don't bring anything into your home. Don't bring any smart appliances into your home. Get wired Ethernet, and tell your neighbors to do the same thing. And at 95 gigahertz, you're at the active denial system, which is a military weapon to disperse crowds. And 90 is kind of, where 5G will be at the very top end of the range. So, I think a lot of people are getting this now, that this is a weapon they're going to unleash on us. We are at war. And it's only a war because most people don't exist. We're in it. If more people knew we were in a war right now, all those patriots down the street from me with their American flags, if they knew what was happening, they would fight like hell, and we'd be marching in the streets, and we wouldn't stand for this shit. But they're brainwashed. They watch the news. They get all fearful. They don't know about things that the mainstream media doesn't tell them about. So it's like a real source of frustration, because the tyranny that keeps coming down is allowed to come down by them, because they're not aware of what's happening, and they just see it as, oh, they're just protecting us for public safety. I'm sick of it. I'm so sick of it. We had these fires. We've had a couple really bad fires started by directed energy weapons, and I know they were because I have a friend, a firefighter, retired captain, who inspected the first fire in 2018. I'm sorry, what was it, 2017? And he found, trees burning from the inside. He found metal burning at something degrees. It was nothing he'd ever seen in his entire career. This was no natural event. And then so you get that, and people are like, oh, it's just a fire, it's just fire season, and then now this is happening. Oh, it's just a pandemic. Oh, we got to protect ourselves. I'm just so sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm like, I'm bothered right now. I'm bothered. But I take that bothered energy and I use it for motivation, to continue to just, get the truth out, make potent devices. And if you're gonna, if you're gonna talk about how we need our freedom and we're tired of being oppressed and treated like slaves, then don't do it to animals. So sorry.
Yeah, no, I get it. And it's a completely unnecessary frequency, and it's talked about like, oh, you can download your movie in 4 seconds, and all this kind of BS that is really maybe speaks to a certain aspect of communities, and but for those that are plugged into a wider range of information and research, we're just going, oh man, we're seeing through the veil. And I think it's, I really feel on the spiritual side of things, on that light body activation side of things, that there is such a powerful upsurge of awakening. And I feel for those of us that are the grid runners, that are the light holders, the ones that are making a way of light through this matrix, that we're just, you know, here to hold space for the people that aren't there yet, or that are slowly awakening, because I feel like it's going to get to a certain point where there's just going to be so much information, even though they're taking it down from the media outlets, but it's already started with just since this last month from the lockdowns.
Right.
There's been such an influx of information going back and forth, and the conversations that I'm having with people that I've never had before on this level, and people are like going, oh shit, let me pay attention here, send me another link, send me some more info.
Yeah.
And you know, it's, so I think there is a readying, but it's so afraid, it's so freaks people out. Like I was telling you about the story about my friend who spoke to her friend, where she's like, I don't even want to know, you know? And so I feel like there's these levels, and not that one's better or whatever, because it just all is, but there's these levels of fear, really, you know? And I know for me, my work, and it just is natural, is to just hold space for that truth, for that unity, as you're saying, which is heaven on earth, which is fourth dimensional consciousness in that heart space. And, you know, love them unconditionally, even if they don't freaking get it. You know, it's just like, you know, we get to be like these little guys and transmute it and just like send that love out, you know, be that light.
Can I butt in real quick?
Of course.
I was talking with someone, I don't know if it was my friend Amber on our last live at Astral Medicine. But I was saying kind of the same sort of things, like I'm frustrated a lot, but at the same time, the best thing we can do is learn from the Organite. What does the Organite do? The Organite is grounded, centered, brings in the bad energy, and Taurus fields out the good energy, and just continues to do that. And it's really kind of, you know, I don't know, cliche or whatever, but if we can think about what the Organite does and just learn from nature, like just learn from nature. Yeah. And Organite in a certain way is kind of like nature. It's just taking in all the bad energy that's out there and then transmuting it. And so I think that's a good thing to remember. I just wanted to add that real quick. Keep going. Thanks.
Yeah, it's beautiful. No, and I know, and I get it, because it feels like it can be cheesy to talk in these ways, but also I feel like it's important though to, if it's true to you, like if things are true to me, to not hide it, you know, and to start to speak this language, because like I said, there's a lot of words or just even ideas in this new level of vocabulary of awareness that the soul and the spirit knows, the higher self that we collectively share knows this and activates from that. And so we get to, I think, be those speakers, be those communicators. And that is a part of holding space for other people, where there's little dots of their DNA that are feeling that resonance of truth, that they can begin to get over their fears and again explore deeper and deeper in this way, and just investigating for themselves. But I do feel like everyone is at their own pace, and it's all good. I come from a spiritual level of being a Course in Miracles student as well, is that actually anything that is rooted in fear is illusion. Love is the only truth. It doesn't mean that we ignore what's fucked up stuff is going on in the world, but it means that we keep our rooting and our grounding in the space of the heart, in the vision, in the God's vision, if you will, that sees the love and only love. And that's my work, is to just keep being that, doing that, embodying, creating the correct conditions for me, like this little guy, you know, to keep channeling that so that I stay clear and calm and I don't get in the fear. Because I think the fear as well is a part of the alchemy that can take us down. And so we get to just reinstate every day, whether you meditate, you do Tai Chi, you garden, you do your crafts, or whatever it is that keeps you in attuned with spirit, attuned with your truth, to help to be our own device, as it was, to stay connected to that which is in the world, but not of it, not of this world. And in that way, I feel I personally can serve those that are ready to be served. I did want to talk, I know, because what I was saying earlier about the YouTube thing, where I was just like, and I kind of knew it, where that video had disappeared. And I was like, oh, I felt like when I first saw it, I watched it like 5 times, and I felt in that moment, I should be recording this right now. And so I'm just going to say to anyone out there that if you are coming across footage that you feel resonates or gives you the tingles and it's something you want to share, if you can back it up, if you can record afford it to do that because this information is being taken down on all platforms, it seems, across. And, you know, because part of what it spoke to is that when the first electrical grid was set up in the world, that was actually when the Spanish flu happened, about 1920, 100 years ago. And so it just speaks again to this radiation, this electromagnetic frequency that is man-made technology, that our body is not happy being in that soup, as it were. You know, it's not responding in a healthy way. And I know we spoke about, you know, the importance of solutions. Right. You were saying that, you know, some of your people were like, okay, we get the Organite, we get this stuff, we understand it, but now what do we do? You know, besides just planting these everywhere. And I do want to talk a little bit about your gifting towers and stuff in a moment. But I think that is very important because, especially if this is radiation, and I think the more research we do, there was recently that video that went viral about the doctor. I don't know if he was on the East Coast, and he's like, look, this is not, you know, they're putting people on ventilators, and that's actually having an adverse, they're having an adverse response because they're treating the patient incorrectly, when in fact what's happening is when they get diagnosed with corona is that, like you were saying, that there's so much radiation in the body and it depletes the body's ability to actually breathe, to take oxygen in. And we know that there's life forces everywhere, but it's also, it's not the air, but it's in the air. And if we can't just on a subtle basic 3D into our lungs take that in, of course we're gonna have issues. But that they're giving people ventilators, and that's not necessarily, they're doing it like a standard blanket sort of a thing versus, you know, taking each patient individually. And really it's about oxygenation. It's about oxygenating the body. And so I wanted to talk to you because so we have this sense that the radiation's coming in, even now, the levels that we have now, which causes the body to go into stress mode, fight or flight, depending on how conscious or not we are of that activating. And as soon as we're in fear or we're in fight or flight, even if we're aware of it or not, and the body's having to respond in that way, we are in stress mode and our immunity goes down. Right. Our immunity goes down. And so by having, whether it's Organite, jewelry, or just in your home, and again, we're going to talk a little bit about diet, veganism and stuff, that we can help to generate a greater quality of chi, of prana, of life force energy in us, around us, that will help to keep us in the parasympathetic nervous system, that is the rest and digest, which is where the body is allowed to repair and regenerate.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And that's what's being threatened by this incoming onslaught of radiation. So I wanted, you heard about the hydroxychloroquine? That so apparently our government has stockpiled this stuff and to treat COVID patients. And what is this used for? It's used for radiation poisoning. But they're not saying this on the mainstream. I don't know if you want to speak to anything on that, or if we can.
You know, I have various sources that are saying that these ventilators are actually emitting Wi-Fi as well, because they have to kind of speak to the machinery that's on the wall, and this speaks to that. And so that if they've rigged the hospitals and updated the telecommunications like they're doing in schools right now and everywhere else, if they've done it in hospitals, then there's potential for that to be at 5G frequencies, the ventilators. And then they're giving them that, what you just said, and which is to treat radiation poisoning. And there's just a whole slew of things happening. My partner Sarah is a nurse, and she's telling me that her nurse friends are afraid to speak up on what's really happening, but that something's not right, and they know it. That these test kits are just generic. They don't prove anyone has any specific COVID-19. They're just totally generic, and they're you know, everyone's being labeled COVID-19. It's just absolutely insane. So I can get into COVID-19 whenever we want, but we're on 5G kind of right now, right? So did you want to keep talking about that?
Well, we're aware. I guess the bottom line is we're aware now. For those that are not aware, what we're sharing, the information that we're aware of is that it's a level of frequency of radiation that is new to the body, that the body has that responds to in an adverse way. Radiation is not good for the body. Not this technical man-made tech radioactive stuff. We know that there's naturally occurring radiation in the earth and in us as being made, you know, from stardust, if you will. But there's but this man-made technology, that this is where the threat, as it were, to our bodies, to our immune system really lies, and that the 5G is a part of this. And now I know people can go and do their own research and look in deeper as to like why, you know, because I think a lot of what happens with mainstream folks is they're like, well, why would the government do that? They would never do that, you know? And so I invite, if you're resonating with this and wanting to know more, I invite the community to go and look beyond, you know, the mainstream media and do some research while it's still available. And I know they can get a lot of information at your website, but while it's still out there, to go and research for yourself and come to your own conclusions about it. Because this is going to be now a time, you know, for some real baseline activation. And this, I was doing some research because we were talking about solutions, and it's to get onto a daily thing of naturally detoxing radiation from our bodies. It's like this is going to have to be a daily thing. And it's really, and getting our lungs activated to take in greater levels of oxygen. You know, we got to breathe. As being a yoga teacher for all these years, you know, when people begin breathing in yoga and they've never done yoga before, they're really only breathing from the upper part of the lung. They don't know how to breathe into the fullness of the lungs. And so they've been living in stress mode, because if you're only taking in a certain amount of oxygen, your body's got to do all its work from that small level. So, and of course, the deep breathing, conscious breathing, helps us to stay in that rest and digest mode. And I feel that's where our expanded level of intuition, telepathy, and awareness helps us to root beyond what the media and all the stories would have us be distracted by. So there's ways to naturally detox from radiation on a daily basis in your diet. And there was even something I was looking up. I'm like, how to help the body, you know, to take in more oxygen. And it's like, open your windows, go outside, you know, do breathing practices. But it's that rudimentary. And if we're not doing the basic rudimentary stuff, and then we can keep adding, but if we're not even doing that, you know, it's like we got to go to kindergarten and learn to take care of ourselves, you know? And so with diet, you know, what I know you're a vegan, how does your background with veganism, because I know you feel very strong about that. When did that start for you?
That was around 2014, around the same time I started making Organite. I just, I watched some slaughterhouse footage that my sister had sent me, and I cried for about a day straight. So that was it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still, it's a justice thing. It's justice. So they're not, the animals deserve better.
Yeah.
And so originally it was a moral thing. But then I started researching more, and I was like, holy cow, plants have everything we need. And so I have a plethora of knowledge. I'll out-debate any carnist that wants to any time of the week, but I just don't have time for it. And that's not coming from a place of ego. It's just coming from a place of, I've researched and I know my stuff. And I could assure you that everything we have, everything that we need is found in plants. And if you clean them, you're not going to have disruption with your microbiome, which can happen when they're tainted with pesticides and herbicides. So you get a lot of these like ex-vegans, oh, you know, well, were you clean them? You know, so, but the whole thing is, you know, going back with, I feel like with that whole topic of diet, I feel like people are starting to understand that your gut microbiome is everything. And so if you want healthy gut, like diverse microbiome, you're gonna feed it, you know, the right things, not something that's creating a lot of mucus and acidity and inflammation and artery plaque. And that is very crucial to defending yourself from everything that we're facing now, radiation, you know, these things that are creating viruses. We have like trillions of viruses in our body at any given time. It's just, if you want to strengthen your immune system, you'll focus on vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D. And so there's like, I can go through everything you'll need to eat to have a strong immune system and lymphatic system. Keep moving, keep jumping around, do little like goofy stuff that kids do, bounce around, keep that lymph moving. That's your sewer system. So if you're not, if you're not doing there's 4 stages. There's ingestion, absorption, digestion, and elimination. So if you're not moving, if you're stagnant, you're not eating the right things, you're going to have a compromised immune system, and the lymph is not going to be able to get everything out. And so I feel like the good news is I feel like people are starting to realize that health is wealth, and what we put in our body is everything. And if we don't want to have an immunocompromised system, we're going to put the right things in our body. And so I see that as a positive, because I feel like people are starting to get that, and they're more interested in like, oh, maybe I should have more fruit, and maybe I should drink more water, and maybe I should fast once in a while, and maybe I should, do all these, maybe I should get more sun. It's almost like these things are forcing us to do what we should have been doing all along. So there's always like kind of a good silver lining in it. But the fact of the matter is, people are so deceived on this Corona thing. They're so deceived. If you see people walking around with masks and gloves on, first of all, gloves are going to cross-contaminate things. Gloves are going to do nothing for you. You're just going to touch this and get some germs on it, and then touch that with the same gloves, and then you just cross-contaminated. And if you're sick, you should wear a mask. But you have people who are not sick wearing masks, and so it's like people are just paranoid. People are paranoid, and I want to tell people that are wearing masks and have like that fearful look in their eye, like, just focus on your immune system. Put the right things in your body. Get a bunch of sun. Think good thoughts. Turn off the TV. The fear literally will cause your cell to say, hey, I'm releasing exosomes. Something's wrong here. No, we're damaged. We're under stress, and it's communicating to the other cells that something's off here. That is what they're calling COVID-19. Is just your body's natural immune response to a damaged cell. And I can get into that if you want. With Dr. Sepi has said the same thing that David Icke is saying, and a lot of other people. And these damaged cells come from just years and years of putting the wrong things in your body. And it's not I don't blame people who, I grew up eating meat and dairy and all that kind of stuff too, stuff that will create mucus and acidity and inflammation. So I don't like hate people that eat meat or anything like that. It's just, it kind of bugs me that there's this whole group of like carnivore thing, that people are going the opposite direction. They're claiming that they need this to be healthy, and it's not true, and it's causing more animal deaths, and it's just, that's what I have a problem with. But the people who grew up in doing this just because culture kind of normalized it, well, I'm here to I want hopefully get through to those people that I was there too, and it's important to break free from that social programming and see that the best way you can prevent any of this nonsense that they're throwing at us is to just put the right things in your body, get sunlight, and think good thoughts, and exercise and move the lymph, and Organite helps in that regard as well, because your cells are able to communicate more clearly when they're around these EMF sources. You can be around the life force. You can get the wisdom from the crystals, because they have that piezoelectric effect on them. So, so there are solutions, and we can get into that. There are solutions when it comes to what USA Inc. can do to us. They think we are their slaves because of the birth certificate. So the birth certificate is basically putting us in bondage, because they're saying that they are the creditor, the name holder of that birth certificate, of that fictitious dead lifeless entity, the all caps name on your birth certificate. They are saying, USA Inc., that they are the owners of that. And so every time we sign something with that, or like that we've done with throughout our whole life, we're basically saying we are that dead fictitious lifeless entity. So that's why they're treating us like property, like a slave would treat a slave owner, with zero respect, zero regard, zero love, just something to be exploited. And right now we're waking up to the point where we are a threat, and there's too many of us. So that's why the Georgia Guidestones, it talks about they need to get into perpetual balance with nature at 500 million. And right now, we're at 7.3 billion. So there's a depopulation agenda. They've openly stated that, okay? And the fact that so many people are waking up, I mean, there's riots all over the world Not anymore, because everyone's ordered to stay at home. How convenient, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, getting into solutions, I don't have all the answers, but I think I've identified some solutions that we can take that just take a little bit of effort when it comes to jurisdiction and status. If we can change our status, I'm learning from a couple friends of mine, that's huge, because they no longer have that jurisdiction over us, and they can't treat us like slaves anymore if we're not under their jurisdiction. So really, the only jurisdiction I'm under is the creators. But because I've identified as that entity on my birth certificate my whole life, and I've done all these things that basically say, yes, I'm your, I'm tacitly agreeing to being your slave, they think they can control and do whatever they want to us. And so I think there's that is a certain component. I think learning to grow your own food is a certain component. I think forming communities with your neighborhood is a certain component, and definitely getting Organite around you and gifting towers 5G with those life force devices is a component of it. So there are solutions. There's no reason to fear. This is what we're here for. And if you look at it like that, rather than holy shit, all this shit's coming down on us like they want, if you look at it like an opportunity to really like do something that we've never experienced before, waking up the masses of sleeping giants, like they're poking, the giant right now. They're asking to awake a sleeping populace, and we are a spark of the creator, so we are pretty powerful, but people just don't know it. People don't know what's going on, and so I think we're going to get broken up here. We can keep going if you want, but there are solutions.
Yeah, let's go ahead and we'll come back and we'll wrap up. We'll do a little wrap up and cover a few final things.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I have some notes that I like. I want to share some notes so people can.
I would love that.
Yeah. So, maybe you can't watch the Ike interview, or maybe you don't really know what Organite is, or whatever. I have some notes we'll go through, then we can wrap up and we can all get on our through our day. But yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity we're in right now. And it's also really scary at the same time. And it's going to force people to kind of get back into realizing whose jurisdiction we're under. We're really only under the creators, and we don't have anything to fear because we are of that creator. And
we are that.
And so, we're gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay.
I trust that too.
But
I trust that too.
There's things we have to do. We have to put we have to put knowledge into our brains, and we have to put that knowledge into action, and then we have to get others to see that knowledge, and they put that knowledge into action too. So it's a tall task, and sometimes it really depresses me because I feel like I don't know how to get through to my neighbors. But I think I'm just going to start giving them vegetables and Organite, and then maybe that'll strike up a conversation.
Yeah, just being kind and putting that frequency out there, building that bridge so that they can then, when they're ready, use that bridgeway to connect with you. And if they're curious, because I think if I had and I'm not projecting this, but if I had an angry neighbor that I could feel psychically was angry at me for not knowing stuff they didn't know, but I just didn't get it or I wasn't there, then I would kind of be afraid to be curious and ask you questions when it was time. And so that's like kind of probably our process too, when we do come into that anxiety and that like, there's like so many people asleep, sheeple and all that stuff. But it's like, okay, be the Jedi, see that there's different levels of consciousness activating. And some people are just going to sleep right through it. Some people, they just are. And that's okay. That is okay. Because it only takes a few of us. This is what the sages